Welcome to a fascinating narrative, unlike any you've encountered before. This is a story that began millennia ago, long before the days of decorative gourds, intricate disguises, bulk candy, or those thrillingly spooky funhouses. It predates the very name Halloween. Back in those ancient times, enormous blazes illuminated the darkness. Folks draped themselves in animal hides to ward off spectral visitors. And the deep-seated belief was that the spirits of the departed could freely traverse the mortal realm. This is not a fanciful fiction. This is the authentic, compelling history of what we now celebrate. It's a tale rich with ancient mysteries, forgotten customs, profound shifts, and the simple truth behind the night many now deem the most chilling of the year. But hold on, this isn't just a delve into history. This serves as an exceptional method to sharpen your English proficiency. If you are on an English learning journey, seeking to boost your auditory comprehension, vocabulary, and conversational ease, then this extensive narrative is perfectly tailored for you. I will deliver this content at a deliberate pace, with crystal clear articulation, infusing it with appropriate tone, and explaining every concept using accessible language. This empowers you to acquire English in a substantial way, while immersing yourself in an epic history that promises to reshape your perspective. You'll never look at Halloween the same way again. Let's embark on this journey. Let's embark on this journey. Part 1. The genesis of Hallows Eve, before the name took hold. The lineage of Halloween stretches back over 2,500 years. Its roots aren't found in the bustling urban centers of the Americas, the glitz of Hollywood, the aisles of contemporary grocery stores, or commercial haunted venues. Instead, it originates in a landscape defined by mist, dense woodlands, and ritualistic fires. It began in the territories of the ancient Celts, in what is now recognized as the Republic of Ireland, Northern Ireland, Scotland, Wales, and portions of northern France. These venerable communities were known as the Celts, pronounced Celts with a hard C. They didn't have access to modern social media or smartphones. Their world revolved around the earth, the heavens, the air, the celestial orb of the moon, and a profound reverence for the natural world and the ethereal plane. For the Celts, existence was permeated with enchantment, riddle, and a pervasive sense of dread. And the single most spiritually charged day of their calendar year was October 31st, the twilight of the observance called Samhain, pronounced Samhain. What exactly was Samhain? Samhain functioned as the Celtic New Year's Eve, the culmination of their annual cycle. For this ancient civilization, the year didn't commence in the depths of January. It started in November, ushering in the severe, dark chill of the winter season. Consequently, October 31st signified the conclusion of the harvesting period and the prelude to the season of dormancy and cold. But here lies the essential, powerful core. The Celts maintained the belief that on this solitary night, the night of Samhain, the barrier separating the mortal and spiritual worlds dissolved. They were convinced that the spirit realm was thrown open, allowing phantoms, departed kin, and malevolent entities to roam amongst the living populace. It was unanimously regarded as the most hazardous and mystically potent night within the year. Why was this night so feared? Their overwhelming trepidation stemmed from the conviction that spectral visitors would return to check upon their former dwellings, either to impart messages from beyond or, more distressingly, to inflict illness, misfortune, and adversity. Therefore, the Celts were compelled to devise means of self-preservation. They did not rely on items like garlic cloves, religious symbols, or modern horror films. Their defense lay in fiery ceremonies, impersonations, and propitiatory gifts to endure the long night. Giant, sanctified bonfires were ignited atop hills on the night of Samhain. The community believed intensely that fire possessed the power to repel wicked spirits. Every member of the community would gather. They would bring the skeletal remains of livestock and cast them into the blazing pyres. This is, in fact, the etymological source of the word bonfire, originally bone fire. Furthermore, they ascribed purifying qualities to the fire. It was seen as a protector of the land, the crops, and their families, preparing them for the approaching deadly cold winter. The role of disguises and offerings. Now, for a truly intriguing detail. On this specific night, the populace would don animal hides, masks fashioned from bone or skull shapes, and dark, flowing capes. Their intention was not recreational enjoyment, but to bewilder the spirits. Their intention was not recreational enjoyment, but to bewilder the spirits. Their logic was that if they appeared as ghosts or untamed beasts, the authentic spirits would overlook them. Thus, the inaugural Halloween disguises were not whimsical. They were tools for survival. The Celts also meticulously prepared specific edibles for Samhain, such as apples, various nuts, and simple baked goods, but these were not for their own consumption. These were carefully left outside their homes as tributes to the visiting spirits, in a desperate attempt to secure peace. They were also fervent believers in divination. They held that on this night, one could catch glimpses of one's future destiny, perhaps their marital partner, or even the moment of their death. At the spiritual heart of these practices were the Druids, the priestly class of the Celts. They functioned as spiritual guides, mystics, and scholars, all combined. They claimed the ability to converse with the dead, foresee future events, and enact secret rites to safeguard their community. They were instantly recognizable in their long robes, bearing ritual staffs, and were regarded with both deep reverence and considerable fear. During the Samhain celebrations, they presided over the ceremonies, lit the sacred fires, and conducted sacrifices, typically animals, and in rare historical accounts, even human beings, to appease the elemental deities of nature and the underworld. It's tempting to dismiss this today, but for the ancient Celts, these beliefs were their reality. They didn't observe Samhain for amusement. They survived it. They didn't observe Samhain for amusement. They survived it. The Roman influence and cultural fusion. So far, we've established that Samhain was a sacred Celtic observance, a night of the dead's return, the fierce roar of bonfires, and a communal effort to endure the spirit world's incursions. But then, the world dramatically changed. Around 43 AD, the world's most formidable empire arrived in the Celtic territories, the Romans. They were a civilization of affluence, technological sophistication, and ruthless efficiency. They did not subscribe to the Celtic pantheon. They introduced their own deities, rituals, and customs, and, gradually, Roman authority cemented its control over the land. The truly fascinating part is that the Romans didn't simply obliterate Celtic customs. They didn't abolish Samhain. They didn't abolish Samhain. Instead, they integrated it with their own existing festivals. This is the pivotal moment when the precursor to Halloween began its major metamorphosis. The Romans contributed two significant observances that merged with the Samhain tradition. Mod Feralia, the Roman Day of the Departed. Feralia was an observance dedicated to honoring the spirits of deceased ancestors. People would present offerings, blooms, prepared foods, wine, and request tranquility from the dead. It traditionally occurred in late October, nearly coinciding with Samhain. When the Romans arrived, their thinking was, wait, you believe the dead return tonight? We share that belief. The two spiritual perspectives began to intertwine. Hi. Pomona, the goddess of orchard bounty. Pomona was the Roman deity overseeing fruit, trees, and the yield of the harvest. Her emblematic fruit was the apple, which explains why apples later became a pervasive symbol of Halloween. The Romans celebrated Pomona around the same time frame as Samhain. This alignment is believed to have contributed to the particular and entertaining Halloween custom of bobbing for apples, a game that carries an ancient, deep-seated significance that we will explore more deeply. We now have the equation. Samhain plus Feralia plus Pomona. This was a synergistic blend of Celtic dread, Roman ancestral commemoration, and harvest celebration. This amalgam birthed something distinct, formidable, and utterly unique: the Christian rebranding. All Hallows Eve. Yet, the evolution didn't stop there. By the period of 300 to 400 AD, a powerful new force was expanding: the Christian Church. Their mission was to propagate Christianity across the European continent, and they faced a major obstacle. The established Celtic and Roman traditions remained deeply entrenched, particularly the dark, mystical, and pagan rituals like Samhain. The Church dismissed these practices as pagan, meaning non-Christian, rooted in nature, spiritual, or magical. So, what strategy did they adopt? They didn't merely attempt to banish Samhain. They tried a more ingenious approach. They rebranded it. They shifted its name, its core theological meaning, and its ultimate function. They appropriated the established date, October 31st, and superimposed a new Christian significance upon it. In the 7th century, the Church instituted a holy day known as All Saints' Day, also referred to as All Hallows' Day, on November 1st. This was designated as a day for venerating the saints and holy figures, individuals who had led exemplary, godly lives. Subsequently, they added another day immediately following, All Souls' Day, on November 2nd. This day was intended for intercession and prayer for all souls, particularly those understood to be temporarily held in purgatory, a state of waiting for purification before entering heaven. The Church had now established 3 holy days: October 31st, the eve of All Hallows; November 1st, All Hallows' Day, Saints; and November 2nd, All Souls' Day. This trio became known collectively as Hallowmass, a 3-day observance focused on the deceased, the saints, and the spiritual afterlife. And this is precisely where the name originated. All Hallows Even, meaning evening. Over time, this contracted to Halloween. Therefore, Halloween is more than just a single date. It was the product of a spiritual collision between entrenched ancient beliefs and the burgeoning Christian faith. The persistence of tradition. But was this strategy successful? Did the populace abandon Samhain? Not entirely. Not entirely. While the church exerted control over the formal holiday, people did not forget the deep-rooted ancient customs. They continued to ignite bonfires. They persisted in wearing disguises. They still held the conviction that the dead could return. The difference now was that the holiday possessed dual faces. A religious facet, honoring saints and offering prayers for the souls of the departed. A folkloric facet, celebrating age-old traditions, acknowledging spirits, and recognizing seasonal transition. In countless villages, the clear distinction between religious practice and regional folklore became indistinct. People might attend church services in the morning and be found dancing around the communal fires later that night. For centuries, the observance of Halloween largely remained a European phenomenon. It never gained significant traction in England, as the Protestant Reformation largely rejected Catholic practices, such as All Saints' Day. However, when Irish and Scottish settlers began their major emigration to North America in the 1800s, they brought their unique Halloween traditions with them. Old world rituals, strange and beautiful. Let's briefly turn our attention back. Before Halloween solidified into the form we recognize today, it encompassed some genuinely bizarre, evocative, and potent rituals. Here are a few authentic practices from the period between the 1500s and 1800s on Halloween night. Soul cakes, the original trick-or-treating. Impoverished individuals and children would go from house to house, singing a simple verse. A soul cake, pray for a soul, and I'll give you a cake. In exchange, they received small, round cakes flavored with spices and raisins. This custom was known as souling, and it stands as the inaugural version of modern trick-or-treating. Instead of receiving sugary treats, they were given cakes. Instead of telling jokes, they offered prayers for the dead. Turnip lanterns. Before the pumpkin. Before American pumpkins took over, the Irish populace carved grotesque or fierce faces into turnips, yes, root vegetables, and placed lit candles inside. These turnip lanterns were intended to frighten away evil entities, mirroring the protective function of costumes and fire. Apple games. Divining romance. Many Halloween activities were not frightening. They were focused on romantic prediction. In one custom, a young woman would peel an apple in one continuous strip and toss the peeling over her shoulder. The shape the peel formed on the floor was said to represent the first letter of her future husband's name. In another, a girl would gaze into a mirror at midnight, holding a flickering candle, hoping to see the face of her future love. Though sometimes, rumor had it, a skull appeared instead. Halloween, thus, became a night dedicated to reading tea leaves, tossing nutshells into the fire to forecast the future, and even hiding rings inside cakes. It was a time when dreams were believed to hold prophetic power. In numerous ways, the original Halloween was an enchanted night of personal fate. We have charted how Halloween endured the Roman incursion. Assimilated Roman festivals like Feralia and Pomona was strategically rebranded by the Christian Church into All Hallows' Eve, acquired its contemporary name, propagated across Europe with its array of peculiar and poignant rituals, and finally crossed the vast ocean with immigrants to America, where a further dramatic transformation awaited. Part 2. Halloween arrives in North America, a sea change. Picture this scenario: a bleak winter settling over Ireland. The atmosphere is gray, the crops are failing, and tens of thousands of families are gripped by suffering. This was the era of the Great Irish Potato Famine, or the Great Hunger, one of the most catastrophic events in Irish history. The potato was the dietary staple for the poor. When a devastating disease obliterated the potato crops, Mass starvation ensued. Over 1 million people perished, and more than 2 million Irish citizens were compelled to leave their homeland. They undertook the arduous journey across the Atlantic to seek a more promising existence in North America. They undertook the arduous journey across the Atlantic to seek a more promising existence in North America. And they carried something profoundly special with them: Halloween. Upon their arrival in burgeoning cities like New York and Boston, the Irish immigrants did not abandon their spirit folklore, their communal bonfires, their ghost beliefs, or their Samhain origins. They still believed in the existence of wandering spirits, the necessity of protective lanterns, the use of disguises to evade the dead, and the divinatory games involving apples and candle flames. However, on the American continent, these deeply rooted traditions began to evolve because the surrounding society was new and different. There were new neighbors, new cultures, and new perspectives. Consequently, Halloween began a fresh cycle of transformation. Let's explore this evolution. Mischief Night and the rise of trick-or-treating. In the late 1800s and early 1900s, American youth began an odd practice on Halloween night. They would dress in simple costumes and masks and proceed from door to door. But their objective wasn't to collect sweets. They were intent on causing harmless mischief or trouble. They might tip over garbage bins, detach garden gates, smear soap on windows, or fill mailboxes with flour. This became known as Mischief Night, and it rapidly escalated into a significant public annoyance. What was the adult response? What was the adult response? They devised a clever solution. Let's give the children an enjoyable, structured activity so they don't vandalize the community. This is the point at which trick-or-treating started its modern development. By the early 1900s, Halloween shifted to become more community-focused. Instead of allowing children to roam unsupervised, municipalities and social organizations began coordinating safe, organized activities, parades, costume competitions, pumpkin carving events, and, crucially, a supervised, house-to-house collection of treats. The focus shifted away from spiritual fear and wandering spirits, and toward recreational fun and confectionery. The candy industry quickly recognized the immense commercial opportunity and seized it. By the 1950s, Halloween had formally established itself as the second largest candy-selling holiday in North America, ranking only behind Christmas. Children would walk the neighborhoods, carrying bags or buckets, calling out the now iconic phrase, "trick or treat," and most households readily provided chocolates, chewy sweets, lollipops, and caramels. This ritual of organized trick-or-treating became the essential cornerstone of the modern Halloween experience. The turnip to pumpkin transformation. Recall the turnip lanterns from Ireland? They were small, difficult to carve, and visually unappealing. However, in North America, the Irish settlers encountered a superior alternative: pumpkins. Pumpkins were generously sized, softer for carving, symmetrically round, and bright orange. They were ideally suited for carving expressive faces and were already a staple of the American autumn harvest. Thus, the jack-o'-lantern evolved from a humble turnip into a grand pumpkin, becoming one of the most enduring and recognized symbols of the holiday. The name Jack-o'-lantern itself originates from an old Irish folktale about a man named Stingy Jack. Jack was a notorious liar, an exploiter, and a deeply avaricious man who managed to swindle even the devil himself. In one version of the story, Jack invited the devil for a drink, but, being miserly, convinced the devil to transform into a coin to pay for the drinks. Jack then pocketed the coin next to a silver crucifix, effectively trapping the devil. He negotiated a release under one condition: that the devil would never claim his soul. The devil reluctantly consented. The devil reluctantly consented. Years later, Jack died. But due to his multitude of sins, God refused him entry into heaven. And, honoring his pledge, the devil barred him from hell. Jack was left condemned to wander the earth in perpetual darkness. The devil, with a grim sense of humor, provided him with only a single burning coal to light his way. Jack put this coal inside a hollowed-out turnip and began his eternal lonely trek across the earth. He became known as Jack of the Lantern, or Jack-o'-lantern. This legend explains why people carved frightening faces into root vegetables, and later pumpkins, to ward off the spectral figure of Stingy Jack and other malevolent spirits. The evolution of the costume. Let's delve deeper into how the purpose of costumes changed. In the ancient Celtic era, people wore disguises to confuse spirits, conceal their true identity from ghosts, and protect themselves from evil. In North America, costumes took on a fundamentally different meaning. Initially, they maintained their scary aesthetic. People dressed as ghosts, skeletons, witches, and demons. But as Halloween embraced a more playful, recreational spirit, particularly for children, the costumes evolved further. Kids began to appear as clowns, pirates, fairy tale princesses, superheroes, and cartoon characters. Costumes became a delightful method to temporarily escape daily reality, to assume a different persona for an evening, and to freely express imagination and joy. Today, the spectrum of Halloween costumes is vast, a fusion of scary, zombies, vampires, classic ghosts, comedic, food costumes, inflatable dinosaurs, cute, baby animals, fairy tales, creative, DIY ensembles, and even contemporary internet memes. Halloween has become a massive celebration of costume and imagination, a commemoration not solely of death, but of fantasy. Haunted houses and the influence of Hollywood. In the 20th century, North America's appetite for fear-based entertainment grew substantially. People craved the sensation of being frightened, while knowing they were fundamentally safe. This is when the haunted house attraction surged in popularity. Dark, winding corridors, unsettling audio effects, masked actors leaping out, artificial blood, massive spider webs, and theatrical smoke machines. These immersive experiences became a crucial element of the Halloween fun, especially for young adults and mature audiences. Hollywood also cemented Halloween's modern identity. The 1970s and 1980s saw an explosion in the horror film genre. Halloween, 1978. Friday the 13th. A Nightmare on Elm Street. Scream, and The Exorcist. These films imbued Halloween with a darker, more profound, and psychologically intense character. Abruptly, Halloween was no longer just a children's activity. It became a communal holiday for all age groups, brimming with terror, exhilaration, elaborate costumes, abundant candy, and boundless creativity. Today's Halloween is a seamless synthesis of Celtic spirituality, Samhain, Roman customs, Feria and Pomona, Christian recontextualization, All Saints' Day, the profound influence of the Great Irish Immigration, and the pervasive shaping power of modern media and commerce. Part 3. The Folklore Deep Dive. Witches, Cats, and Classic Monsters. To truly appreciate the current Halloween imagery, we must understand the historical narratives surrounding the figures that populate this night. The story of the witch and the broom. Long ago in Europe, a witch was not universally regarded as evil. In many rural communities, there were women who functioned as herbalists, midwives, assisting in childbirth, spiritual advisors, and wise women. They possessed extensive knowledge of botany, seasonal cycles, celestial bodies, and natural healing methods. They were often trusted community figures. However, as organized religion and centralized authority grew more dominant, these women were increasingly viewed as a potential threat. They were labeled witches and subjected to accusations of communicating with the devil, casting malevolent curses, flying through the air on brooms, consuming children, transforming into animals, and controlling the weather. Paranoia spread rapidly and devastatingly. Paranoia spread rapidly and devastatingly. Between the 1400s and 1700s, tens of thousands of individuals, predominantly women, were brutally tortured and executed in witch hunts across Europe and even in the Americas. One of the most infamous instances was the Salem witch trials in Massachusetts, USA, in 1692. The fear was so intense that evidence was deemed irrelevant. Mere accusation was enough to ensure danger. In historical European folklore, witches were purportedly seen soaring across the night sky on brooms during Halloween or Walpurgis Night, a similar spring observance. Why the broom? As a common household implement, the broom was symbolic. Witches were often women of the home. The broom represented domesticity. But when utilized for magical purposes, it became an emblem of defiance and formidable power. Some accounts even suggested that witches consumed hallucinogenic preparations that made them feel as though they were flying, cementing the broom as a symbol of rebellious female strength and public anxiety. The black cat superstition. Contemporary Halloween decorations frequently feature black cats with luminous eyes. But during the Middle Ages, black cats were widely regarded as associates of witches, harbingers of ill fortune, and demonic spies. A pervasive belief was that witches could shapeshift into cats to evade capture. The enduring superstition that a black cat crossing your path brings bad luck remains surprisingly common in many countries today. Ironically, in ancient Egypt, black cats were revered as sacred and lucky. In Europe, however, fear transformed them into icons of malevolence. Vampires, werewolves, and ghosts, the triumvirate of terror. Why do we choose to costume ourselves as vampires with bloody fangs, werewolves baying at the full moon, or ghosts in flowing white sheets? These figures are all rooted in ancient European legends and are directly linked to Halloween's foundational fear of death and the darkness. Vampires, originating in Eastern European narratives. They were said to emerge from their graves to sustain themselves by drinking the blood of the living. They were strongly associated with disease, particularly epidemics like the plague and tuberculosis. This fear was heightened by the fact that exhumed bodies sometimes appeared unnaturally preserved. In certain regions, people went so far as to nail corpses into their coffins or place rocks in their mouths to prevent their supposed rising. Werewolves. Humans afflicted with a curse that compelled them to transform into wolves under the light of a full moon. They embodied the primal fear of losing human control, of succumbing to bestial rage and sudden, uncontrollable transformation. They represented the terrifying notion of the inner beast breaking free. Ghosts, the restless souls of the deceased who could not find peace. They typically manifested to issue warnings or complete some unfinished terrestrial purpose. They were feared because their appearance was often linked to sickness or imminent death, and they became central to the Halloween narrative as the boundary between worlds opened up. These iconic monsters allow us to process and confront our own fears through the safe activities of laughter, costuming, and play. This is the subversive power of Halloween. This is the subversive power of Halloween. Modern Halloween fears. Urban legends. Let's briefly examine contemporary fears that circulate during this season, often termed urban legends. These are shared narratives, frequently believed to be factual, but which are usually rooted in exaggeration and public anxiety. Poisoned candy. This is one of the most persistent North American urban legends. Inspect your child's candy. Someone might have placed a razor blade or poison in it. Parents have been gripped by this anxiety for decades. The reality is that there are virtually no confirmed cases of random strangers intentionally contaminating Halloween treats. The few reports were mostly either hoaxes, accidents, or incidents involving people known to the victims. Yet, the fear remains a potent force. Satanic panics. During the 1980s and 90s, unfounded fears spread about supposed satanic cults utilizing Halloween for rituals, animal sacrifices, or child abductions. These fears were heavily driven by sensational media and lacked any credible evidence, but they intensified the myth of Halloween as a night of genuine, organized evil. Part 4. Global celebrations and Canadian connections. Let's move beyond North America and see how other nations observe the days surrounding October 31st. Some enthusiastically embrace Halloween, while others commemorate the dead in entirely unique, beautiful ways. Mexico, Día de los Muertos, Day of the Dead, celebrated on November 1st and 2nd. This is not a scary holiday. It is vibrant, beautiful, and deeply spiritual. Families construct elaborate ofrendas, altars, with photographs, candles, food, and marigold flowers. The belief is that the deceased return to visit. People paint their faces as decorative skulls, calaveras, but with affection, not fear. It is a powerful celebration of memory. Japan, Obon Festival, occurs in August, not around Halloween, but shares a similar spiritual core. Families engage in grave cleaning, light paper lanterns to guide spirits, and warmly welcome their ancestors' spirits home. It is a time of peaceful reverence. Italy, Spain, France. These nations primarily observe All Saints' Day and All Souls' Day. Italy, Spain, France. These nations primarily observe All Saints' Day and All Souls' Day. People typically visit cemeteries and place flowers on graves. The observance is generally more religious and reflective than celebratory. Germany, a unique tradition, sees some individuals hiding their kitchen knives so that returning spirits do not accidentally injure themselves. China, Hungry Ghost Festival, analogous in concept, held in late summer. It involves appeasing spirits and offering sacrifices. Philippines, Panggang Lua, an equivalent to the old European souling custom, where children sing songs in exchange for food and prayers. Halloween in the True North, a Canadian perspective. Halloween in Canada has a distinct feel, often blending the spooky history with the practicalities of a northern climate and a multicultural society. Climate consideration. Due to the often colder temperatures in late October, especially in provinces like Alberta, Manitoba, and Quebec, Canadian children frequently wear their winter coats over their costumes. This leads to humorous sights of superheroes with snow pants or princesses bundled in puffy jackets, adding a uniquely Canadian, resilient flavor to the evening. Safety and community. Just like in the U.S., community-organized events are paramount. Fire departments and local organizations often host events to promote safe trick-or-treating practices. There's a strong emphasis on reflective tape on costumes to ensure visibility during the early twilight. The porch light rule. Canadians adhere strictly to the porch light rule. If the front porch light is illuminated, the house is participating in giving out treats. If the light is off, one knows to skip that residence. A polite, unspoken agreement that defines the night. The jack-o'-lantern culture. The pumpkin carving phenomenon is huge, often incorporating distinct Canadian elements like carving maple leaves alongside the scary faces. The candy debate. While American favorites dominate, there's a quiet love for distinctly Canadian treats during Halloween, though the major corporations dictate most of the purchases. Part 5. The Modern Spectacle. Commerce and Cultural Expression. Halloween, once a quiet night of fear and bonfires, has ballooned into a globalized spectacle of joy, imagination, and massive consumer spending. How did this transformation into a commercial powerhouse happen? The simple answer is capitalism and boundless creativity. The simple answer is capitalism and boundless creativity. Today, Halloween stands as one of the largest commercial holidays globally, especially in North America. Astonishingly, consumers in the United States and Canada collectively spend over $15 billion annually on Halloween-related goods and services. This places it firmly as the second biggest shopping event of the year, surpassed only by the Christmas season. Where does this immense expenditure go? Costumes. Approximately $5 billion. This expenditure covers children, adults, and an ever-increasing market for pet costumes. More than 30% of North American pet owners now buy outfits for their dogs or cats. Costume trends are a living blend of tradition, witch, ghost, vampire, and fleeting popular culture, movie characters, viral internet memes. It's a huge driver of the fashion element of the holiday. Candy. Approximately $4 billion. Hundreds of millions of pounds of candy are purchased solely for this night. The most sought-after treats include chocolate bars, peanut butter cups, and the perennially debated candy corn. Fun fact: the week of Halloween is the single highest period of sugar consumption for North American citizens. Decorations. Approximately $4 billion. People now decorate their homes with the same enthusiasm they reserve for Christmas. Think giant, air-filled inflatables, spiders, pumpkins, elaborate faux cemeteries on the lawn, motion-activated zombies, and complex lighting displays. Homeowners are engaging in heated neighborhood scariest house competitions. Haunted attractions and events, approximately $750 million. The adrenaline business thrives. Large-scale haunted houses, spooky high-rides, thematic escape rooms, and horror-themed park nights are major draws. These attractions range from small, local setups to massive productions featuring professional makeup, animatronics, and cinematic special effects. Pumpkin industry. Approximately $1 billion. This covers everything from pumpkin patch visits to the sale of gourds for carving and the massive popularity of the pumpkin spice flavor in everything from lattes to snacks. The allure of freedom and transformation. People commit so much capital to Halloween because it offers a kind of cultural freedom that few other holidays does. There is a magnificent monument to Duckworth here. No obligation to buy gifts, unlike Christmas or Hanukkah. No strict religious observances, unlike Easter or Passover. No intense family obligation, unlike Thanksgiving. It is, at its heart, a night of pure personal expression and temporary metamorphosis. You have permission to become someone else for an evening, to express your imagination, to laugh in the face of fear, to embrace the dark with a sense of fun, and to share a playful thrill with your community. It is a night of rebellious playfulness, and that resonates powerfully with modern society. You are now fully versed in the rich, complex history of Halloween, from the ancient Celtic fires to the modern corporate fun of trick-or-treating. You understand its transformation from a spiritual survival ritual to a global festival of commerce and creativity. Remember this: every tradition you pause to explore widens your mental landscape, enriches your understanding of the human spirit, and, crucially, strengthens your command of the English language. Whether you are carving a pumpkin this year or simply enjoying a hot drink in your room, know that you are now a part of this ancient story. And stories, especially the great ones, never truly fade. And stories, especially the great ones, never truly fade. Happy Halloween!